How goes the family? Welcome back to Patterson L Properties. Hopefully you guys are having a great and exceptional day. All right, now if you do not remember the 2007, 2008 real estate market crash, it was devastating on so many levels. Foreclosures were through the roof. The job market went to hell in a handbasket, along with the stock market went, et cetera, and so forth. In today's world of 2022, the housing market, along with interest rates, are up and overpriced, and the stock market is in decent shape. Cryptocurrency's gone to crap, along with the job market all at the same time. But I still believe that cryptocurrency will still come of age. I think more regulation will take place, and then the banks will take over, and then we might be at the same place that we were all at the same time. So we'll see what happens. But no matter what the shape of the United States economy is in, it is my contention that the whole regular 9-to-5 lifestyle without an economic plan, meaning practicing family/group economics, then most working 9-to-5 workers are going to be screwed all at the same time. According to the article that I read the other day, a Columbus, Ohio native, Cameron Johnson, as you see here in the purple shirt, found himself with limited options for places to live, and he decided to return home. And since 2007, this has become more normal than people would think. The article went in on the basics of why Mr. Johnson had to move back in, with his parents stating that Cameron Johnson found out his rent would go up more than $100 if he renewed his lease. Average rent in Columbus, Ohio is $900, which isn't bad, because the national average is basically got up to $1,800. According to the Pew Research survey, but Columbus, Ohio isn't that, it's not a big booming town or anything of that nature. Well, it's getting there, but it's not like a New York. It's not even a Chicago when it comes to economics. Ohio isn't the most economically prosperous state in the Midwest. When I think of economic prosperity in the Midwest, I think of Illinois, I think of Indiana, and I think of Minnesota. But that's just my personal opinion. Anyways, according to the Pew Research survey, nearly 1/3 of Americans between 25 years old and 29 years old live with their parents. According to the Franklin County Auditor, the median sales price for a home in May 2022 was $280,000. Now, one thing that I would like to recognize is that it isn't the end of the world if you still live with your parents at the age of 25 and 29, as long as you have a plan of saying, hey, I want to move out one day, but I'm just getting my money right, and hey, I might be able to help my parents out because they're getting up in age and things of that nature. I can contribute in a different manner. But being out here in today's world and not having a significant amount of money in your savings account, me and my buddy was talking about this the other day, at least $5,000 in your savings account for a rainy day, and continuously contributing to your savings account, just like you should, at least if you don't have a 401k at your job, you should at least have some sort of an individual retirement account known as an IRA, so you have your money working for you in some shape or form or fashion. Consult a financial professional, because I'm not one and I'm not giving out financial advice. I'm just saying these are just the principles. These are one-on-one economic principles that I live by. It's good for you and it's good for the U.S. economy because money's going into the stock market. Look at it like that, okay? That's one thing I will say. But like I said, living at home gives one the opportunity to save the money and get their credit right so that they can possibly purchase their own home or open a business one day. I lived at home until I was in my mid-20s, and I was able to buy a multitude of rental properties and my own home and have an actually decent credit score. Didn't even realize the importance of having a decent credit score because I only had one credit card. Two, I was able to save a numerous amount of money and whatnot because I didn't have student loan debts, because I didn't have children, and because I didn't have a car payment. I drove an older vehicle. So that was these are things that suck away a lot of people's chances of economic prosperity in the United States of America if you care more about what your car looks like and what your clothes look like than what your compared to what your bank account and what your assets and your credit score looks like. That's just my personal opinion. So that's just something to take into consideration. Families need to operate like a corporation, period. Everything in America is about, it's a capitalist society. Everything is about feeding a system and feeding the machine. Everything is about making economic moves. But most people don't want, even if they do realize that, they still don't want to implement simple one-on-one economic family corporate principles into their lifestyle. And I'll get into more of that later. But it is what it is. But like I said, it not only gives a person who's living at home opportunity to save money and to get their credit right so that they can possibly not only purchase their own home, they could possibly open a business one day, et cetera, and so forth. I think that The Leave It to Beaver 1995 mindset of the United States of America for working people is basically overrated in 2022 going into 2023. I always say this, 10 incomes in a household is way better than 1 or 2 incomes in a household. Immigrants, people who come from all over the world, come to the United States, and they do this. They combine a multitude of paychecks. They buy real estate. They buy businesses. They invest in insurance policies. They invest in 529 plans for kids for their colleges. They invest in individual retirement accounts. They believe that the family, from an economic standpoint, should work as a corporate unit. And because of that, they're not just throwing people to the wolves once they turn 18 so that they can get up to student loan debt and be in debt to the day that they freaking die just so that they can get a college education for the most part, unless they're getting in a specific field like i.e. information technology, engineering, science, and the medical field, that it's basically become worthless in my personal opinion. And I'll leave it at that. The millennial generation was the last generation to quote unquote get a college degree and in any subject matter, and it meant something. Nowadays, kids coming out of college, it better be in a specific specialty, or my personal opinion, that degree is worthless. And I'll leave it at that, okay? The individual corporate mindset is dead for working people. Because even major billion and $1 million corporations don't even operate from an individualistic standpoint. They operate as a unit, they operate as a group, and families are going to have to start getting like immigrants do. They do this out of survival in the beginning, and then they just do it for economic prosperity in the end. Working Americans are going to have to take on that same mindset regardless of who's sitting in the White House, governor's house, and mayor's house, if they want to be economically prosperous in the future. No one does it by themselves. Teamwork makes the dream work. You can go much further with more people than trying to go by yourself. That is just the realest thing I could put out there. The article also stated that Mr. Clyde Johnson, who you see in the picture here in the black shirt, is the father of 3 and has always put his family first, because that's what you're supposed to do when you have a family. He worked hard to prepare his boys for the real world, but now the world is too expensive, as he says. And like I said, I agree, but then I disagree, because and I mean no disrespect to Mr. Johnson, but I'm sure his mindset is still operating from the principles of the 1970s and 80s and whatnot, where the cost of living was way lower. You could get a better chance at getting a decent paying job without a college degree, and 2, the job market wasn't as competitive as it is today. And then another thing is to take into consideration, multiple streams of income is the only way, not one stream of income. His generation was the Gen Xers were the last generation to benefit off of the one stream of income. Millennials going on down must have multiple streams of income, putting it that way, especially if you want to become a homeowner and invest in the real estate market. Just my personal opinion, all right? So, Mr. Johnson's youngest son, Cameron, moved to an apartment in downtown Columbus, Ohio during the pandemic. A little over a year later, he found out that his rent was going to go up more than $100, which forced him to regroup. He stated, and I quote, Mr. Cameron, who's in the purple shirt, "I can't afford this lifestyle," said Cameron, and that's exactly what it was, a lifestyle. He says, "I only make so much money, and paying $1,100 in rent, $100 to park, plus utilities, it was just getting out of hand. So I reached out to my parents and asked what they thought about the idea of me moving back home. So my problem with this is, why did you, at the end of the day, my problem with this is, because he mentioned that this is a lifestyle, okay? Why did you move to freaking downtown Columbus? All downtowns in any major city, I don't care if it's Milwaukee, New Orleans, Kansas City, St. Louis, LA, Las Vegas, Phoenix, Miami, Portland, Seattle, Tampa Bay, Charlotte, Raleigh, it does not matter. I don't care what city, major city, if you are trying to live a lifestyle, like he stated, in a downtown area, you are going to, it's the most expensive pieces of real estate in the country for the most part. That and beachfront property. Usually the most expensive pieces of real estate is real estate in downtown areas. You wanted to live that lifestyle, so my personal opinion is I don't think he would have had to move back home if he just would have moved in a 1-bedroom in a suburb outside of downtown Columbus, or maybe in another part of the city of Columbus, Ohio, but not in a downtown area. That was mistake number 1, young man, but you live and you learn. Not everybody knows everything. I know I didn't, especially at his ages, in his early 20s, but I think he would have been economically more prosperous and been able to stay in his apartment if he would have not gone downtown. I'd love to have my own downtown loft in Los Angeles and whatnot, but I'm good. It ain't that serious. I can just go get an Airbnb every now and then. It's not that serious, but I digress. Just had to put that out there because, it was a mistake. You live and you learn, and you learn to live, and that's the way life goes. But anyways, the article also stated that this is widely due to the student loan debt, caregiving, and rising costs of apartments and homes. That's partly true, but like I said, the fact that if this was another part of the city that was not anywhere near downtown Columbus, then I would have believed that statement. But the fact that you were living in the most expensive part of the city, 9 times out of 10, since you were just getting your life started, it wasn't going to work out. And the chances of your rent being increased, rent increases are very normal, 1, but 2, they're very definitely normal when you live in a downtown area. A friend of mine used to live in Crystal City, which is where the Washington, D.C. National Airport is. It's right next to Amazon's East Coast headquarters, and it's minutes away from Washington, D.C. in itself. I remember my friend, he lived next to a metro station because at the time his job was right there in walking distance. But hey, his rent went up tremendously. I remember he moved into a smaller apartment, and then his rent went up tremendously again. Then he decided to get another apartment in another part of the city that was 20 minutes away from D.C., further away from a big major city on the East Coast, quote unquote, our nation's capital. So it's just something to take into consideration, young people, okay? I remember me, when I first moved out, I was sleeping on somebody's couch for a year, and then I finally decided to rent a room in a house and whatnot, and that's when I decided to buy a house. I wanted to live below, my mindset was live below your means as long as possible, and therefore you can be economically prosperous in the end, so you can save more money. My mindset was save more money, because the idea of being broke is something that I can't afford to be. Quoting Boyz II 59, one of my favorite rappers from the 90s, early 2000s and whatnot. So shout out to Detroit, Michigan. But I digress. Like I said, I just really had to go in on that one. But anyways, when Cameron's dad crunched the numbers when Cameron himself crunched the numbers with his parents, they were shocked to see how high the cost has basically quadrupled since the 1980s. And I'm not trying to, be facetious, but inflation is something special, and it will always play a part in this society. So that's why you can't judge society from the 80s to now, because 10 years from now, I'm not going to be able to judge society from now in 2030. It's just going to be a totally different world. But it's like I said, stories like this should always remind people to operate differently outside of the I'm only going to get a college degree and get a job mindset. It's not Gen X, it's not baby boomer generation anymore. It's millennials on down, multiple streams of income generation, multiple assets generations, financial intelligence generations. That is where we are now. One has to have side hustles. One has to have a business. One has to have life insurance policies. One has to have individual retirement accounts, real estate savings accounts, qualified retirement accounts, things of that nature, as is known as self-directed IRAs, where you can put money into an account where it's getting invested and then pull it out and be able to utilize it for business purposes and things of that nature. You have to think differently. Do not accept what society tells you. All right. So, anyways, Mr. Johnson, Clyde Johnson, the father of Cameron Johnson, is saying having Cameron back home is actually mutually beneficial, because his father says, him and his wife, they're in their 60s or coming up. He said ankle surgeries and leg problems, and they've had health problems, and it was a blessing in disguise for him to come back home and help his parents out and help himself out. And Cameron moved back home a little over 2 months ago and has begun to look into homes, but the housing market is no better. According to the Franklin County Auditor, the median sales price for a home in May 2022 was $208,000, which is 19% increase from April 2021. Article ended on this note stating that Cameron said he's stuck at home until further notice. He said, I was potentially looking into homes to see if there was anything I could do there, and the renting price is $1,400 to $1,500, and I can't afford that, he stated. It's just been really tough right now. Experts said that housing crisis could go into better part of 2023. Clyde said, Mr. Johnson, Clyde Johnson said that having Cameron back home at least gives him a chance to re-enter the world on his own terms. And I look at it like that, but at the end of the day, only advice I would give, and this isn't financial advice, but the only advice I would give Cameron Johnson is like, maybe when you move back out, just move into a bedroom, and you still have that quote unquote independence, and then you know, give yourself some time, because since you're working a job, to develop a side hustle or possibly get promoted at your job. But anybody to survive in today's world is going to have to live outside of what society considers normal, and it's going to have to make money outside of what society considers to be normal. All right. On that note, don't forget Patterson Our Properties. We wholesale real estate on multiple levels, especially if you had tax sales and tax liens. That's just an easier way for us to acquire properties instead of just, you know, sending out mailers in hopes that distressed property owners will allow us to wholesale the properties. But hey, let us know. And, you know, all of our contact information is here and within the description. And if you're a crypto investor, stock market investor, individual retirement account investor, don't forget to check out WEBULL Stash, acornscrypto.com. Coinbase, all those programs, you'll be able to make some money, plus get up to 14 free stocks with WEBULL. And if you want to join Gold Standard Partners, we have not only the opportunity to buy crypto, but to refer others to do the same thing, referral marketing, and get a crypto card and all that great stuff, make money off their package purchases and crypto purchases. So as I always say, do great 3 things: like, share, and subscribe. Make money moves, or you're gonna live bro like a fool. Remember, you can't get fired if you own the company. It's 2023. Well, we're going into 2023, but it's 2022. It's time for you to own something. Take care.